Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.
Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And today, as usual, I have somebody in effect that I know, but this person is really been intricate, a part of Detroit is Different, been a part of the podcast studio, and knows all the equipment here, like I know the equipment here,
exactly.
Even though I'm one of the people that's definitely, as I guess you could say, get the equipment. But after I get the equipment, one person's like, I gotta know. Show me. Brittany March. Brittany.
What's up?
How you feeling?
Good.
All right, so Miss Brittany, you are a part of Is Food Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
You are a part of the Piper Carter podcast.
That is true.
You are connected to the network, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
You were one of the people that when we were doing the podcast festival back in 2019, I was like, all right, I'm going to help you organize it. What's going on? And I was like, these people are going crazy. And you were one of the people that got the people less crazy, or got me to be less crazy about everything.
Perspective's everything.
Yes. So perspective is everything. Let's talk a little bit about Brittany. Miss Brittany.
What's up?
Share first Is Food, vegan pizza, and your vision for creating pizza and it being connected to Detroit and all of that stuff. Let's talk about what's Is Food and vegan pizza. Why? How? What?
Okay. Let's start with the name. So Is Food Detroit for me, the name and concept was, I just think that we attach ourselves to concepts that make us feel better about ourselves, whether we're identifying how we identify sexually, or if we're this, or if we're alpha, if we're AKA, or if I'm a vegan. So for me, I think plant-based living works for the mental and for the physical and the spiritual, right? So for me, it works, right? But for everyone else that's maybe on their path, and I want to say path, maybe they don't perceive it as such. And currently where I'm at, that's okay. So it's food. Like, let's just remember it's just food, right? So that's the name, Is Food Detroit. I met Khary actually through trying to document parts and my perspective of Detroit. And that's where the Is Food Detroit comes from, because it's just, I vision it being a collective of different foods. And that's what Is Food Detroit is. It's going to be kind of like the hub to my perspective of food in Detroit.
All right, so let's start there. Your Detroit story. Roots, I know you are now in Detroit, but what's your roots? What's your background?
So I always give the long-winded version of my background because it's important. If you tell people you just from the suburbs, they'll have you like the dude on A modern with the Cranbrook.
They'll be like, you from Southfield.
Yeah.
No offense to my Southfield
I'll give
people.
y'all the long-winded version, but quickly. So my dad is from Detroit, went to Northwestern. Played basketball, class of 72, went to Michigan, played basketball. And my mother is from down south. She's from Mississippi. And she was part of like that late baby boomer migrate to Detroit. Like most people's parents have that story, or grandparents have that story.
Whereabouts in Mississippi?
Columbia, Mississippi, in a small town called Expo, a really, really small town. And so she went to Park College in Kansas City. So she stayed in Missouri for a while. She also lived in Memphis. And there were 6 of them. So one of the 6 had moved to Detroit on the east side off of Otter Drive. So
Did they call it Detroit? That's how them Southern people, they be like, you in Detroit.
I'm sure they country has definitely called it that.
Detroit.
So when she was a school teacher, so she decided that she was going to migrate here to teach school. She started teaching at Persian, and she taught at, I think, another middle school on the east side. So the first suburb that's outside of Detroit that isn't like mad expensive, when she got her bread right, she moved to Warren. So I was raised in Warren.
Okay.
And then when she got her bread tight, saved her money, she was teaching at Mumford. She did night school. She did summer school. She did, regular schooling. And she moved us to West Bloomfield. Because I lived past a certain road in West Bloomfield, I had to go to Wall Lake Central. And I didn't like it for several reasons, because I just knew I was going to be a hooper. I hated for hooping. So I went to Southfield High for the other 3 years, and it was perfect because everything we did was in Detroit. Harper Memorial Baptist Church was in Detroit. Doctors were in Detroit. Friends were in Detroit, East and West, right? So she migrated to the East, so naturally we spent a lot of time. A lot of her friends were on the East side. But then because she taught school at Mumford, I was, very, very, intimate with the West side of Detroit. Plus, I played basketball, right? So a lot of my AAU, a lot of my PAL, right, was all in the city. So I'm kind of like a Michigan mutt, to be honest with you.
So let's stop there because I say Metro Detroit because it's not like you were in the Upper Peninsula or anything like that or on the west side of the state as of yet in this story. Warren is a unique city because Warren is huge. First off, Warren is way bigger than you think it is.
It is.
What do you remember about Warren and what years were you there? Do you remember anything? Because even in my lifetime, the population of Warren has shifted and really Warren is like East Detroit.
It is.
What was happening in Southfield, I'd say in the 90s seemed to be happening in Warren right now.
That's very, 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 very true statement. So Warren growing up was kind of like what Downriver is, meaning that the white population was very, very blue collar, right? Yep. You had white people who were working in the factory, white people who were, maybe, and also in Warren, because the big three, right? You have a lot of suppliers. So you have a lot of small suppliers that are located in Warren, like Galco, for instance. They're an electronic circuitry supplier, right? So you had those type of class blue collar workers. So when I grew up in Warren, what I remember is Chicken Shack, the first original Chicken Shack. Okay. Right on Ryan Road.
Let's put it like this. Okay, for all black people in Detroit, it's like two subsets of black people, and this is so crazy.
Very true.
In the world of fried chicken, and I know somebody that especially supporting It's Food or the vegan plant-based movement will be like, brother, you confused, but you got your KFC people.
Yes.
Which is to me
and it's
a
kind
higher.
Of too.
It's like a higher grade of black folks. Which my family was not a KFC family. Good old Popeyes family.
Popeyes,
which is the more hood.
Where Churchy's got the grease stain on them. No pun intended.
Yes, Popeyes is a little bit more hood, but Church's is definitely the down. The subsets of it. I remember one time I saw a guy that had to be 500 pounds in the Church's drive-through in a motor scooting wheelchair. And I was thinking to myself, damn,
must be good.
Church's. I was just thinking to myself, this is so many memes and commercials and jokes, and also just such a Detroit picture. That's back when I didn't have a camera phone or anything, but the image stood out. But Chicken Shack, as they say, is a suburban alternative to all of these.
So you had the roasted potatoes. And this is so since we're talking about food and my origin, I didn't grow up eating pork or beef. My parents weren't eating it. They weren't Muslim. They just both were a little bit health conscious, which is a wave too. In the 90s for a certain segment of black people, right? People. That's when Afrocentrics in Detroit, I'm sure, surpasses the 90s, right? You're talking the 60s and the 70s, but that's when people, you started to really watch what they, put in their body. And for that moment, it was no swine, right? No red meat, right? Yeah. So you had a lot of people doing that. And my parents were just one, even though I grew up in a separate household. So, so Chicken Shack wasn't red meat. So we ate a lot of Chicken Shack. Okay. And basketball. We lived in a place, hooping. I just always was a basketball player from the bottom of my heart.
Now, being the girl hooper, did you? It's sometimes like in the neighborhood, and it was women that can hoop. Shout out to Shana. Tashana was
a lot of good women hoopers in the 90s. Yeah, for sure.
So what was that like going on courts? Because, our first introduction to basketball is pickup basketball. And being the girl playing pickup basketball sometimes can be... What was that like?
Just imagine the first scene of loving basketball, literally. That's how it was. Literally, I always forced myself into a situation. I always felt as if, people would never, especially being a girl basketball player, people weren't just going to willingly pick me on the team. People weren't willingly going to give me the ball. So I always itched myself into a position where the ball was going to get into my hands. So living in Warren, it kind of was just my mom would put me in some of the basketball training camps, but as far as like my early on basketball, it was just me and a ball. Like me just sitting in front of the TV watching sports and just dribbling the ball between my legs, because I always knew that the first point of basketball was to be able to dribble. So I would just be walking in the neighborhood in Warren, dribbling this ball. Like, I was known for having the ball in my hand, you know what I mean? And then from there, basketball camps. But what I remember the most about that time frame, which we moved from Warren after 7th grade, was Mumford High School, So my mom would come and pick me up from school, which I went to Faith Christian Academy. But another thing that was huge in Detroit at that time were mega churches. So Word of Faith, which is a mega church, had a little tiny middle school. And so that's where I spent most of my elementary and middle school years. And I would get from school and I would go to Mumford because, again, my mom worked both day and night shifts. Okay. And I would go straight to the gym. And people would come to her and be like, do you know your daughter be talking smack? Like, where did she get to learn how to talk smack? Like, but that was the environment that I always wanted to be in. I always wanted to live in a city. I always wanted to live in a neighborhood. I always wanted to know what it felt like to wake up and be able to go outside and play basketball with people. So when I got to Mumford, I took full advantage of that.
So you talking about taking full advantage of hooping. What was your game like? Because as I know, like, okay, at one point in time, I was a kid with the basketball rim in the backyard. We played differently, but I want to say, was it about 3 years ago? I played pickup with like some younger kids at the court not far from in Live 6. It's like a court in the neighborhood. And it just blew my mind to see like kids get a rebound, then they run to the 3-point line and shoot a 3. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, I guess because they grew up loving Steph Curry
for sure, the
way that I grew up liking in reality. Like, I mean, I'm a kid. Isaiah Thomas was like my first like probably athlete I loved the most. And then after Isaiah Thomas, but it was actually Shaquille O'Neal, because I was a fat kid and Shaq was huge and he was dominant. He was tearing rims down. My mom got me a pair of Shaq's. She got me Shaq's like animated shirt. He was rapping. Shaq. It was like Shaq was amazing. It seemed like for about 3 years of my life, Shaq was who I looked up to. Who was the basketball player that was like
great question? So for me to answer it in short was Allen Iverson.
Okay.
And one of the reasons was because, again, I didn't grow up in the city. The city was always a fantasy for me, right? I spent, if it was 24 hours in a day, I spent, let's just call it 16, 15 of it in the city. But it still was like I wasn't in the city. And so Iverson's origin story, very similar to mine, but different, right? Raised by his mom forcing him into things, right? And, Allen Iverson was a football player. He hated basketball.
Yeah.
Different than me. I've always loved ball. His mom had to force him out there. And when she forced him out there, he loved it. So Iverson, again, represented what the blackness that wasn't yet accepted in America, right?
Yeah.
That alternate, and Iverson was before people understood that black people could be very dynamic, very different. And no one in the history of basketball could control the ball like Allen Iverson. Like I told you, I thought basketball was being able to dribble when I first started. So the ball was always in my hand. I was always dribbling. So when I saw Allen Iverson for the first time, I'm like, this is who I want my game to be like. You know what I mean? I always wanted to be a point guard. I always wanted to control the floor, but I wanted to do it with swag. I've always been like that. Like, I've always wanted to, like, do the basics and the fundamental things the right way, but then I always wanted to add my own touch to it. And Allen Iverson was that for me.
So what type of cornrow styles did you have?
Oh, come on. I had, like, if you knew me in high school, middle school, parts of college. No, I didn't have the cornrows in college. Okay. But middle school, high school, I had the best cornrows. Like, people would say to me, like, how are your cornrows lasting so long? Like, I did not play. And they were I could look just like how I wanted to look on the court. And for some reason, I always was able to make the cornrows look super feminine and make them last. Like,
and you did them yourself?
No, my cousin did. My cousin did.
Myself, okay.
No, I wish that's one thing I could never do was hair.
Yeah, okay. All right. So that's balling.
That's ball.
From ball, where does that lead you? Did you play ball in college?
I did not.
You play ball in high school? Where did you go after?
So what really hurt me with my love for basketball is when I got to Southfield, I thought that I had practiced all summer with the Southfield team. And I just knew, like, this coach had assembled a team. Like, he went to Murray Wright and found a good guard. He found a lot of younger girls, and we assembled this team, and we went and played all summer. And when my parents realized, like, hey, it might be easier just for you to go back to Southfield, I went, and I had to sit out a year because of the transfer. And I couldn't play, so that was my sophomore year. I couldn't play my sophomore year. So my junior year, even though I was playing and practicing, my confidence was lower. So I was very inconsistent my junior year, which if you are going to play basketball in college, like, it's very important that, you know, your junior and your senior year, you're very consistent, that your numbers match, that you're well-rounded. And my junior year, remember, I had been sitting out a year, right? So my confidence level was off. It was very, very, mental. And my mental...
And I want to talk a little bit about that, as being an athlete is something that definitely in our community we embrace. We love the success of it.
Yeah.
But it also comes with a lot of pressure at young ages, as I knew many athletes. Myself, I would never consider myself an athlete, even when I played. I mean, I was just having fun.
I got you.
What type of pressure did that put on you in 10th grade to sit out a year? You know, where was your confidence at? I mean, how did you even approach school?
I saw myself, not to cut you off, but I saw myself through basketball. Like, that's how I saw myself. That's how I identified.
As a hooper first.
Yeah, as a hooper, for sure. Like, I was always musically inclined. I always loved music. But I always let everything take a backseat to basketball. So not being able to play really, really, really kind of screwed with me. Like, I didn't know how to where to fuel myself. Kind of,
because it had to, at that young age, you had to really get into answering questions of defining who you are,
correct,
as a person, because you identified yourself more so as a hooper.
Yeah.
And I guess the natural next question comes: what about AAU? What about pickup? Why couldn't you just?
I did, but you remember, like, during basketball season, like, there is no AAU, so it was a good 3-4 months. I couldn't practice. I could damn near not even be in the gym, right? Because I wasn't technically able to be on the team because I transferred. So I still was connected, just being homegirl, but it still was like this disconnect. You might remember I went from Wall Lake Central, where I didn't fit in at all. Like, it was very diverse but very segregated, and there's all different sorts of black.
And let's talk a little bit about being at a school like that, because a lot of times I give this example. Things that are labeled as the best things in society, especially as a black man, or just being black in general, are sometimes can be the most detrimental things for us.
Tell me about it.
As I'm sure Wall Lake Central,
very detrimental.
Ann Arbor Pioneer, like a lot of these schools, Birmingham Groves, are labeled as like one of the best in education and a great place. But what was the pressure about it? Because knowing people that have gone to these schools, their naturalness to fit in, because culturally,
oh my God,
it just isn't built like that. But share your story.
So, I mean, we have to remember too that I'm the generation of where, like, it still wasn't common for black people not to go to college. Like, the 90s was black people have arrived from a career and from an education perspective. Like, 6 out of the 10 people that you talk to that were in their 30s or 40s have gone to college, and they expect their kids to. Right? So giving your child a good education, right? That concept, that I know it hasn't died, but people would do all kind of things to send their kids to a certain school district, right? Certain thing, not realizing the social aspect that would come along with it. And for me, I lived out there, right? But I was still not, I wasn't socially understanding of diversity yet. Like, I still, again, was a hooper. I didn't see, I hate to say it, color. Like, if you had an orange ball and you had a floor that squeaked, I'm there, right? So for me to understand the concepts of what it, again, I was raised in Warren. I spent 80% of my time in the city, right? But those worlds kind of still clash for me. So when I was in a setting where it was diverse, but it was still segregated, and it's still, you get to see white men in power, right? So it's a segregated school, but the white man is for sure in power. You know what I'm saying? That was a different for me. My coaches, right, even from the style of play, right? You traditionally see schools like Clarkston, Wall Lake School District, maybe not Groves and Troy school district so much, but they play a certain type of basketball, right? 4 touches and no dribbles, just shots, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, I just told you, I'm Allen Iverson. That's not my game, right? So you're trying to condense me, right? Because you don't want me patting the ball because you friends with so-and-so daddy, and if she don't have the ball in her hand, or if she's not on the court, right, that's the problem. So I got to introduced to politics. I got introduced to diversity. I got introduced to a lot of different things. And an education program that, was good, but you have to remember, these kids have been in Wall Lake School District for quite some time. So my understanding of the school district and the curriculum was different. I'll give you an example, integrated math, right? For me, middle school was algebra, right? So when I get freshman year to integrated math and I'm got calculus mixed with algebra, I'm like, what the hell is this, right? My brain, I was out of my element at Wall Lake.
Yeah.
And that has nothing to, do with my parents' decisions, because at the end of the day, I know my mom was trying to do what was best for me. And plus, we lived out there, right? So for me, Wall Lake, from a basketball, a social, and just from just like a everyday thing of being in school for 8 hours a day, it just wasn't for me. Like, the best thing I liked about it was the school lunches, which were fantastic. But everything else was just...
So then you get over to Southfield.
Which was another
What was
shot.
the difference there? What was the difference?
So Southfield, like you said, is traditionally an unorthodox and Orthodox Jewish city.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so in the late, I'd say early 90s to late 90s, you started seeing Southfield become more diverse. So by the time I got to Southfield in the early 2000s, it was 99.8% black population as far as the school district goes. There was Southfield High and there was Southfield Lathrop. Yep. Lathrop is the more known as the kind of because Lathrop is closer, Lathrop district is closer to Birmingham, that area moving towards the burbs. Southfield is closer to the city of Detroit. Yeah. So you got people who think as if, back to giving your kids a better education, right, that if they're not going to send their kids to Redford. They're not going to send their kids to Mumford. They're not going to send their kids to, I'm trying to think of another school that's near. Henry Ford, right? They're going to send them to Southfield. Yep. So Southfield was a mix of parents who had actually moved to Southfield for a better life.
And then parents on paper.
Right? That lived in Southfield. So Southfield was a mixed bag of different type of black. So going into it, I used to come home like, Mom, I'm so happy to be back around my own people. Like, I'm so happy. But there were things and concepts that I wasn't, again, used to. Like, I always been kind of like, oh, I want to be fly. Like, oh, like, I always had that in me, just because, again, 90s, everybody was fly. If they was in a Afrocentric wear, they was fly. If they was in a Guess jeans, they was fly. So I'm part of that millennial generation where no matter what you're going to do, you're going to be fly. Excuse what I got on now, but I still in my own way think this shit is fly, right? Yeah. So the point I'm making is Southfield was like a fashion show to me. And honestly, I didn't care for it. Like, I'm thinking because I'm around black people, it's about to be like my back to Africa.
You was thinking it was going to be like a different world. You was
no. It was like Doughboy Cash Out originated out of Southfield, believe it or not.
Yeah, Southfield,
you know what I mean?
Oak Park,
Yep. So I'm part of that, seeing all that, and I wasn't ready for that either. Like, I honestly did not fit in well. Like, I hooped, and that's what I was known for. B March, knew for hooping, right? And I kind of stayed, even though I couldn't hoop my sophomore year, I kind of just still closed in a lot of myself and concentrated on basketball. You know what I mean? I just didn't feel like it wasn't the black experience that I was expecting it to be in that moment. Only in that moment. Now I look back and I'm like, man, I loved going to school there. It was the best back experience for me because that's where I learned black is not one thing. It's not two things. It's everything. Yeah.
Okay, now let me ask you this. You were uncomfortable in Wall Lake. You were uncomfortable in Southfield.
Yeah.
Do you look back at both experience, what gives you more reverence for the Southfield experience? Like, if you were, talking to a mother and father that are thinking about their kid picking a school, and they're like, I don't know if I send them to Northwestern, it could be crazy.
I would say know your child.
Should I go to? What would you say?
I would say know your child. I think that for me, the type of person that I am, when I reflect, like, all experiences are good experiences, right? I don't see anything, again, this is consciously, it could be a lot of unconscious things that I'm not aware of. I don't see anything that was, like, traumatic for me. You know what I mean? Consciously. Like, I honestly look back and I'm like, I'm glad I experienced everything the way that I experienced it, because I'm all, like, if my personality is kind of like, I don't know, not a lot of things shock me, not a lot of things scare me, not a lot of things kind of like, I like everything. I'm like a mixed bag. Like, you never know what you're going to get. It just depends on how I feel. And so my experiences kind of like shape that about me. You know what I mean? I've been exposed to a lot of different things in a way that my mom, raised me based on, by default, like, just because of how she was living. You know what I mean? So I would say to a parent that just know your child, right? There's a school, shout out to Amir, who works down at the Village. He's 12. He's going to the 9th grade. Mama Nicole, shout out to you. But the point that I'm making is that he goes to Roper. Roper is a very, very expensive liberal school that is in Birmingham, and I believe also Bloomfield. There's a middle school and a high school. But because I went to Faith Christian Academy, my middle school, I got exposed to Roper. And you go there, and the kids are calling the teachers by their first name, right? Yeah. They're able to express themselves. They don't do homework, right? I'm not saying every parent should send their child there. But if you know you have a very gifted child that is bored easily, and they always seem to be like the bad child or the child that doesn't do the things that they need to do, like, you may want to send them to Roper. If you have a child that doesn't understand certain concepts about life, like they think life are in a box, maybe sending them to an inner city school is best for them, right? I think people are so, like, caught up in this, like, still this, like, 90 version of what a good education is. Like, a good education is what you make it, period. I've seen people from Cooley do amazing things. I've seen people from Cass do okay things, depending on what you think okay is, right? You know what I'm saying? When I say okay, they're fulfilled, right? But in the eyes of, like, what success is, it's just okay, right? So the point I'm getting at is that you have to know your child, and you have to know what's best for them, and kind of allow that spirit to grow inside of them. And then the neighborhood school could just be just as fine. You know what I mean? It just depends on how you look at stuff.
I agree. So that brings us to college.
Yeah, Northwood University.
And Northwood, for people that don't know, Northwood is like kind of around, that was the one college trip from Northwestern that we went on, me and my homie Lo. Northwood is near Frankenmuth.
It is.
For a lot of people that are wondering. So Frankenmuth is strange that people know more about Frankenmuth than Northwood. I
know.
It's basically right there.
Yeah, it's between Saginaw Valley and Central Michigan. So it's in Midland, Michigan. So basically, it's a small business school where a lot of people who own, like, car dealerships, who own their own firms, send their kids that are, like, so entrepreneurs send their kids to school there so that they can get a business degree and then run their parents' company. I know tons of kids whose parents own dealerships, know tons of kids, parents who owned accounting firms, right? And they just wanted to come and get a business degree, stay in Michigan, stay focused, got the business degree, got a couple years of experience, and now they running their parents' restaurants, all kind of stuff, right?
Why did you choose Northwood?
Because my cousin went there. My cousin, Michael, went there. And he went there 10 years prior, but I just remember him always being able to, like, go home, be still around, but still be away. You know what I mean? And when he got out of Northwood, I think I told you this off air, he got a really dope job. Like, he lived a life, like, right after going to college that he wanted to live. Now, my story wasn't like that, But I'm like, okay, Northwood is close. If I decide to walk on for basketball, I could. You know what I mean? The basketball thing kind of drifted once I got into kind of like boys, right? And I realized, like, okay, WNBA players, they make like 30, 40,000, but they give their whole energy, their whole everything to basketball and don't get much out of it. And I didn't know if I wanted to do that. Like, so I kind of slowly, got to remember everything from elementary school up until 12th grade was basketball. So I wanted to understand what life was without basketball. So when I got to Northwood, I'm kind of like, this is the perfect place for me to be. 2 hours away. They have a D2 team. If I want to walk on, I can make it. And I was cool. My cousin went there. He did well, right? So That's why Northwood.
What was it like?
I love Northwood, to be honest with you. For it to be, for a college experience, the only thing I regret is I wish that I would have went to a HBCU just to get that another layer of like that dynamic feeling of what Black is. Like, I just love what that feeling is when Black just keeps hitting you in the face different ways. Even when you Black, I think it's more prolific, so... but Northwood was still good because it gave me, again, another version of who I am, right? White, Black, African, Indian, Chinese, all different varieties of races and cultures, right? You have white people that were from the Upper Peninsula. You had white people that were from the city. You had Black people that were from Cleveland, right? And there were Black people that were from Detroit and went to King. You had all different types of people and from different backgrounds. And the kids from Cleveland, right? I'm like, how the hell y'all end up here? It was like tons of people from Cleveland.
The land.
They bought a whole, you think of Ohio, right? You thinking lames, like we call certain, Black people locals, right? From Kalamazoo, Flint. Hilarious. You know what I'm saying? Back then when we in high school, they ain't from the D, they whack, they lame. And then so Northwood showed you people from Kazoo, people from Muskegon, Flint, Saginaw, all had spirits, all had soul, all had coolnesses of Black. Same thing from Cleveland. Cleveland taught a lot of people about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Polo, Ralph Lauren, even though I'm talking early 2000s where, you know what I'm saying, European fashion was like at its heights. So was, the hip-hop brands, Rockaware was still around, all them Jabot, that still kind of was lingering into the early 2000s. Yeah. But Cleveland taught people about SBs, about Dunks, about Blazers, Nike, different Nikes, gym shoes, Japanese denim, right? Huge on Japanese denim. Nudie jeans. I'm talking about all different types of fashion, right? So it was a great experience for me. It was a good experience. I met a lot of people that were into hip-hop, true hip-hoppers. Like, shout out to Dame. He's a person I went to school with, dropped out of Northwood and started on his own record label. He was super into Joe Budden. I'm just throwing stuff out there because just to give you an example of just the different types of Blackness that was there. You know what I mean? So it was cool for me. Okay, so from there, where do you end up? I was, during the summer, I was working at a country club near where my mom stayed, and it was a Chaldean country club, meaning that it was a privately, if you weren't Chaldean, you couldn't go there. But publicly, anyone could golf there. Okay? Yep. So I worked there during the summers. I did an assortment of things. I did the Bev cart where you drive around and you serve drinks and look kind of cute. Okay. And then I did banquet where you hold the tray, right? And you serve fine dining, right? And then I did fine dining. And then I also did, I served poker tables. Okay. So I had that's where I think I would say my love for food started to really, really come in. I've always loved food, but seeing a different culture's take on food and understanding spices and understanding smells and understanding bread, it honestly was amazing. So I worked there, and all the members knew that I had gone to school. And this was you got to remember, I graduated college in 2011. But in 2008 was when the recession was. So that was only 4 years. Yeah. So life was still kind of circulating around the recession. Yep. So I couldn't find a job is what I'm getting at. I just knew back to the 90s. I wanted every successful Black person in the 90s that was cool was in the advertising. You look at Boomerang. Advertising. Eddie Murphy and them was in advertising, right? Gina Martin, she was in advertising, right? I wanted to be this fly Black chick with a cool haircut and that was super confident and that did advertising. I wanted to be a copywriter. I wanted to own my own marketing firm and I was just going to be so dope and I was going to make commercials. And I actually got a plug. Someone had introduced me to a guy in Detroit. Detroit, if what people don't know, because of the big three, has a lot of marketing firms. Yeah. And it also developed into, there were a couple early 2000s Black advertising firms where they did a lot of before the bias training, right? A lot of these advertising firms had segments of minority portfolios.
And wait,
right?
time out. Let me say, It still exists. It's just under a whole lens of, they call it diversity and inclusion now.
For
It
sure.
still exists. They just reframe how it looks.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? It's a reason why our Super Bowl halftime show is what it is. But continue.
Such a great point. Such a great point. So that's what I wanted to do. So I got a plug, and I'm like, oh man, they asked me to create this. I went to school.
Like,
so
okay, wait, time out. Even on that same tip, it's
Yeah.
Super Bowl halftime. The what's up? Those guys were an advertising
Literally.
firm, black advertising.
I didn't know
firm.
that, but literally that what I was saying literally of is that what they were, who they were marketing to, right?
Yeah.
But the point I'm making is that Northwood, a lot of my friends found this out, was the business side of things. Even if you were going to school for the arts, right? It was the business side of how to handle the arts. That's what made the school so powerful. So a lot of my friends, again, from Cleveland, right, from a lot of different areas who wanted to do fashion, they got very, 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 like, disheartened because they were only learning just a little bit of the creative side, right? But it was really just the business side.
Yeah.
So a lot of them, junior year, left. They went to Chicago. They went to a lot of different places. So same thing for me, but I stayed. I enjoyed the business side of things. I love business.
What was your major?
Ad marketing.
Okay, so
I
that makes
thought I was going to be a
sense.
copywriter.
Okay.
So when I got out of school and I got this plug of this black advertising firm, they were going to plug me, but they wanted to see a portfolio.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell? I ain't got no portfolio. I haven't done nothing creative. So I was kind of like super salty, like, dang, now I get why my friends left. Right? I'm thinking that, like, I'm a creative person. I'm this cool. Like, oh my God. I'm like, and no, I didn't have a portfolio. And they only gave me like a 2-week turnaround to give them a portfolio.
Yeah.
And I wasn't about to fudge it. Right? So I went back to the country club. And so the members knew that I was like looking for a job, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, when I realized that I had only garnished the business side of advertising enough to like put it on my resume, and it wasn't enough, I didn't know what to do. So from there,
So it's almost like you were at that basketball position again, a little bit.
literally,
Yep.
I didn't even think about that. Long story short, the members all knew like that I was looking for work, and they knew I wasn't about to work in one of they funky ass liquor stores, gas stations, hotels.
Yeah.
But there was this one member who worked for Otis Elevator, and I had no idea what that was. But they were like, "Man, you should talk to him. Like, they have sales positions. Like, you actually might like it there." So he got me an interview in Cincinnati. I didn't get it, and then they called me for the one in Detroit. And they were like, "We think this is a perfect fit. You're from here." So I started working with elevators. So I thought, okay, selling elevators, all I gotta do is press a button. I mean, what I'm gonna do, sell buttons? And then that's how I got into the world of elevators. Like, I started in sales / account management, which is always like kind of like a super entry job into anything once you got out of school, right?
Yep.
And it took me, again, parts of myself got reintroduced to myself of like being able to be a lot of different things in one, right? I'm in a hotel one day, but I'm in a high-rise building the next day. I'm talking to a property management group that's been in the city for 20 years one day, but then I'm talking to a building owner of 17 buildings that are all across the Metro Detroit another day, right? So I'm learning, right? I'm adding skill sets to myself. I'm seeing how to talk to people. I'm seeing how to communicate with people. I'm learning how to see people in their biggest frustrations, right? If an elevator's not going up and down a hoistway, people are mad, right?
You got that right.
So
You got that right.
I've learned,
Especially if you got tenants in
go.
that said building.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my background is,
Okay.
elevators.
So then we meet. You gave somewhat of an introduction to this, but we meet through Mama Shoshana. Shout out to Mama Shoshana. Now it makes sense
They don't
because
make them like that no more.
she was teaching, or most people from Mumford would know her as Miss Talaferro.
Yeah.
We know the Talaferro name is connected to even Booker T. Washington, but more so her older brother, which is also my big homie. Rest in peace, Chokwe Lumumba. And that connection got us going because one day Mama Shoshana said, "You got to meet Brittany." And I was like, okay, just tell her to pull up when I do this, My Natural Hair recording back when I was doing the Natural Hair podcast over at Detroit SIP in the Live 6 neighborhood. Javonna Watson, another shout out in that mix. Just how all this stuff connects. LaDonna, Markeisha, part of the network and in the family.
For sure.
I meet you.
Yes.
After meeting you you were like, I want to shoot a video. I want to shoot and I was like, okay, you need to get better lighting. You need to get better audio. You need to basically like, it was like you are jumping into this project with a lot of stuff. What I was getting into. And I said, you need to meet Piper Carter. Pick up.
So, yeah, I can't even remember the year. This had to be like 16, 17. I always have felt like I've been like, I'm a talker, but I'm not a talker. I don't feel like I have to always like express or explain myself. I like people to kind of just get it. And if they don't get it, they're not meant to be. But I've always have not liked the feeling of like being misrepresented or misunderstood. But I also don't want things to be about me, right? I like people to see who I am through how I view other things, if that makes any sense. And I wanted people to get an understanding of me through a documentary based on the city of Detroit. Now, this was, again, 15, 16. So back up. I got to back up a little bit. So before I meet Khary and Piper, I knew that I wanted to open up a pizzeria. It just popped in my head one day, and I will get into that. And from there, I realized that, like, oh, my God, I want this pizzeria to be, like, a community staple in this Detroit. Like, I want kids to grow up eating my pizza. Like, I want them to be, like, after school, like, be like, man, I'm going to get a piece of pizza. And I was like, I got to move to the city. Like, the city is changing. And I want to get to the city before it completely changes and I don't get a chance to feel the city the way that I grew up not being able to live in. So I moved out and I finally moved to the city. And so from there, I started experiencing city life. Oh, yeah. And I got to start seeing the city from a different perspective of just me on the outside thinking it was like the coolest shit ever. And so from there, I'm like, I got to capture it. I don't know what I'm doing. But I had watched a show on YouTube called Money and Violence. It was a guy named Ray, and I forget his homeboy name. They was just two street niggas, and they decided that they was just gonna film. They wrote a script, and they was just gonna film it.
Let me say this. Okay, so Money and Violence of what she's talking about is one of the more popular versions of what I think now has been like a splurge of YouTube series that kind of connect now to the movement of a lot of Detroit films and stuff on Tubi, Amazon. Sure. Tubi will have the new season of McGraw Ave coming up, which is based in my old Northwestern stomping grounds, the number streets and across the bridge, McGraw Ave. But Money and Violence was one of the shows. Like, so it's funny that the team, it was 3 teams that were doing things. One more is Issa Rae. When she had Awkward Black Girl. That was like one of these series.
See, I'd have missed her before
the other group was the Money and Violence group. And then I think the other one was like All Black Sexy. So it was like 3 different. So one was from LA, one was from the DC area, another one from the Atlanta area primarily, and crossing. So the DC area also kind of encompassed Baltimore. Okay. And the Money and Violence group was kind of based in that whole DMV Baltimore area, if I remember. The show is still up there, but
it's Brooklyn, but you think you mix in with The Wire when you say Baltimore. But yeah, it was Brooklyn.
Exactly yeah, you're right. But all these series were coming out around the same time where people were taking their cameras and basically making our own scripts. The same way right now, if you go on Tubi, you'll see, if you put Detroit movies, you're going to see like a wealth of films that exist, and Homestead and Dennis Reed III, another shout out, but continue with this because it's like a movement in content.
It's just part of where we're at. Like right now, when we look at black media, you have to like respect it. Like these guys knew nothing about cinematography. They could care less. They just knew they had a story to tell about. I have to go in just a tiny bit. So Money and Violence basically showed you, it was similar to The Wire, but they showed you all street niggas. They showed you the drug dealer. They showed you the what do you call it? The scammer. They showed you the wolf, the thieves, and they showed you the hitman, right? So it's not everybody, when they think of street life, they think of like the drug dealer, right? And he used everything, all of that, right? But no, it's not. Like, it showed you the snitches. They showed you everything. So they were street dudes that wanted to really show street life and just did not have training. And that's where my inspiration came. I'm like, if these dudes can do it, I know I can do it. Like, I took the money. I've always been big on investing in myself. So I'm like, cool. I got this extra cash. I know I want to do this documentary. I'm just going to buy the flyest equipment. But then I know this flyest equipment is going to become outdated by the time I'm done with it. So I'm just going to do a mixture of stuff. And this is so funny now, like where we're at in media. I was like, I'm going to do it. It's going to be some on the iPhone. I'm going to get an old Polaroid. I'm going to get an iMac. And I'm going to get this dope Canon camera. And I'm going to use all 4 as the footage. And when I'm trying to give somebody a different feeling, I'm going to use this type of footage. And then I'm not going to show myself. Like, I'm like, I think, again, I want people to learn who I am, but through another lens. So I was like, I'm going to interview all these different people, and it's going to be my collage of my perspective of Detroit. People are going to get to see the mega churches in Detroit. People are going to get a chance to see how, and when they see that, they're going to see how important the church is to Black people. People are going to see the barbershops, beauticians all up and down 6 Mile and 7 Mile, and like they're gonna see that Black business has always been a thing in the city of Detroit, and maybe it'll fuel the beauticians and the barbershops to open up their own beauty salon. I mean, like the stores that they use to get hair and stuff, hair stores,
supply stores.
I'm like, all right, then I'm gonna just get everybody. I'm just gonna film everybody. I'm gonna get community activists, because people need to know that all this stuff that's pro-Black has been here. It's been in the city. Super excited, and I just started doing it. And it all just started coming to me. I got a chance to interview all kind of people. I'm talking about the footage that I have. It's like kind of, and then I also got the inspiration from Hoop Dreams. I'm like, I'm like, it doesn't matter when I finish it. It just matters of how I collect it and how I put it together. And it'll be that much more potent. So then Mama Shushana, she was one of the people that I wanted to interview as DPS teachers. DPS always has had like this like really weird relationship with the media and just in Detroit and just in general with like people like Khary just asked, like people wondering where they should send their kids, right? So I wanted to give people a real dose of what DPS was, including the Cast, the King, the Renaissance, but understand that in the 90s, if you didn't go to Cast, King, or Renaissance, I hate to be biased, you went to Mumford, right? But there's also a story about Northwestern. There's also a story about even McKinsey, right? All these different stories, there's all these different deep-rooted stories. So I wanted to get Mama Shushana because she was a community activist, but her being a DPS teacher would lead me into the community activist portion of the documentary. So when she saw what I was doing, she said I reminded her of Khary. And I was like, okay. And I don't like meeting people, especially when it's somebody who is more involved in the craft. I didn't want them to think like I know what I'm doing, because I really don't know what I'm doing. Like I didn't know how to do it. I wasn't listen to me. The day that y'all was filming that, she told me to come, was 2 seconds away from not coming. I probably circled the block 3 times before I pulled up.
Wow.
I'm like, man, like, I don't even know, like, what I'm doing. Like, this is about to be embarrassing. Like, he gonna probably be laughing at me because my camera stuff is gonna be whack. Like, and something told me, like, just go. So I went, had a great time, and Khary was like, you gotta see my space. So I came to Detroit, it's different, and I was completely flabbergasted. Like, because it was, like, everything that my documentary, like, represented.
And
like,
wait, and that was the first, okay, so right now we're in, so Brittany, when I say, as you all just heard in the story, like, Brittany takes to this equipment very well and soaks up, like, almost like in a day. She learned this setup, like, maybe in, like, 30 minutes. I was like, it may take some time. She's like, just show me. And then it's like, she learns, kinetic learning very fast. But that was studio setup 1.0. We're probably on studio setup
like
5.0 or something. Like, who knows? Like, that's the thing of creating content where I'm always getting a couple new gadgets and things like this. And shout out to, like, you know, you learn from different people. My other cousin, Lumumba, Studio Lumumba. I'm surprised he didn't text me tonight because he's picking up some stuff that I got to get him. But yeah, so it's like you saw the first iteration of this setup.
For sure.
And it definitely looked nothing like this.
Oh, my God. Nothing. You know, so when I walked in, with that being said, like, the first iteration, 1.0, like, it still was nothing like I've ever seen before. Like, we're on the deep west side, right? And this is an area that, like, is super close to Highland Park, is super kind of close to downtown, but it just has, like, it's always had its own vibe. The Shrine of Black Madonna, from what I remember from my childhood, is not too far away. And my first boyfriend, like a serious boyfriend, like grew up off Linwood and Davison. So he and his parents.
That could be a good thing or a bad thing.
And no, it was a good thing. It was a good thing. In its own way, like I told you, in its own way, it was a great thing. But he lived off Oakman. So coming here, I'm like, this is exactly what Detroit is to me. And it was called Detroit is Different. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like what is going on right now? And I was so inspired and I was so well impressed with Khary and like his vision. And I could tell based on how he explained everything that he understood his process, right? He understood the purpose of having a process and trusting it and taking steps. You don't eat an elephant whole. You take it little by little. And when you have the chances to take big chunks, which in another realm is quantum leaps, you do it, right? So I was super inspired, and I just was like, man, I felt honored. Like, I just, in my mind, thought like, oh, I got to get him on my documentary. Like, that's as far as it went. I'm like, this dude got to be on my documentary. This is perfect, because I wanted to do the documentary, and I'm still going to do it, but I have to learn how to focus. So,
well, you just have a lot more on your plate.
Yeah.
As we go, and
Yeah.
So continue with this story. This is fascinating because
So,
it's like, wow, this,
I
you know,
wanted
it's
to
like
do-
those moments where it's
Yeah.
like, you know, like when what was it? When Michael Jackson was on stage accepting that Grammy and thanking Diana Ross, it's like, wow, this is crazy. You know, but continue.
So in the documentary, I just visualized me like having everything broken down and explaining the city, because once people understand the way Detroit is actually laid out on a map, it becomes the most beautiful city ever, right? To me, I love New York, love the boroughs, but if you break the city of Detroit down, it to me is more beautiful. I don't know why. Maybe I'm being biased again, right? So I wanted to give everybody a taste of what was going on in each segment of the city. And I was going to introduce, I was going to do it kind of funky. Who knows? But point I'm making is that, like, I was so excited and ecstatic to have, like, a West Sider, like, a specific West Sider, so close to so many gems. This neighborhood has, like, this energy orbit. It will always be protected. Like, because of the, like, the ancestors and what they've done. You know, you got the Nation of Islam that's nearby. You have, again, the Shrine of the Black Madonna, the bookstore. You have, it's just, and I'm not even naming it all, like, but you got the Focus Hope community, right? It just has this energy orbit around it. And for him to be doing something like starting his own media company to, we always talk about, I always told people, like, I don't need CNN giving me black people, like, on there from a black perspective. I don't need a black perspective on TV. I don't need that. I don't need the Grammys to give me all black singers and all black winners. Like, I don't need that. I want it genuinely created by my own people, right? And that's what Khary was doing. And I was, like, so down with the concept, so in between then, I was coaching basketball at the time. And I had someone tell me, like,
stop shooting threes. I'm just
somebody was like, man, you got to come hoop with us. Like, the older kids, I was teaching 5th and 6th graders. So they wanted me to get on a court with, like, 20-year-olds. So I always busting on the 5th and 6th graders' tails. So when I actually started hooping with the 20s-something, the game was much faster. Of course, long story short, tore my Achilles. So here I am doing this documentary. I can't drive because it's on my right foot. And I'm salty. I can't do pizza. I can't study pizza. I can't cook. I can't go to pizza work. I can't do nothing. So I'm just sitting on my couch, like, what is God trying to tell me? Like, I'm so confused. Like, I done started these projects, and now I can't even stay in shape because I done tore my Achilles. My 3rd day in my boot, Khary hits me up and goes, like, I need you to come to the studio. Like, I need you to meet somebody. And he was like, I think you should really, really start spending more time at Detroit is Different. And I'm like, is this a sign? Like, oh my God, like, I'm so down right now. Like, my violin is going. And I'm like, I'm going to go. So I got an Uber, and I came here, and he introduced me to Piper Carter. And the moment I met Piper, she's, like, singing. Like, Piper's energy is, like, something you've never experienced. Like,
yes.
It's like a karaoke machine mixed with, like, a fashion magazine mixed with, like, a Detroit 1980 newspaper, Detroit Free Press, and then it's like the basement party that you went to in high school mixed with, like, the best cipher you've ever seen in your life. Like, all that at once, right? So I was like, oh my God, girls like this exist? I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, there's a girl out here who actually gets life. Like, that is what I felt. I was intimidated.
Yeah.
Piper has an intimidated energy because she's filling you out.
Yeah.
But Khary made the introduction. I was like, I think, she's doing this podcast and I believe in her and she's so dope. She's hip hop. She's this, she's that. And you guys remind me of each other. Just figure it out. Right? You should be a producer. Do you know what a producer is? I'm like, no. He's like, but this is what a producer is. Of course, Khary lays out everything. He has an agenda. He has paperwork. So he's like, this is what a producer is. And then he like lays it out. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. Like a producer. Like that sounds cool, So the first night I was here, like I, witnessed the podcast. And then from there on out, me and Piper kind of like was homegirls. Very, 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 very similar spirits. I just get her. She gets me. She holds me accountable. I hold her accountable. She's my mentor. She's my sister. She's somebody that I strive to be daily when it comes to goal setting, being task oriented, and also being a free spirit and letting stuff just come to you and you showing the world what you got. So that's how I landed here.
Yep. And that leads us kind of to like at the end, we're talking the pizza. Because I even had to tell G-Mac about this, where I'm like, you met Brittany originally through the Piper Carter show, but then G-Mac was the one that said, nah, we was doing the initiative with Youssef on Vegan Tuesdays. And Piper said, let's do the pizza. So, like, if people know we're all interconnected, like these stories and people, like when I think of, I used to trip out on Harlem Renaissance and it's like, damn, Malcolm X knew Red Fox, knew Billie Holiday, knew, like sometimes like if the synergies around, these energies connect. And then you give this person a play and so forth and so on and so forth and so on. So like, Youssef Shakur, which people know that's my homie.
Shout out Youssef, man.
And Youssef Community Movement Builders, an initiative that's a national initiative around community development in Detroit. But one of the key initiatives in fundraising was an initiative brought forth by Greg McKenzie, G-Mac, who a lot of people may know from Alkebu-lan Village and other things. It was like, I do Vegan Tuesdays and we can make some money out of that. And it was like, okay, so technically every Tuesday, and it'll start back up in April, you can come by Mama Akua House. That is connected to community movement builders and get some vegan food that tastes good, because that's the difference. It's like, it's a lot of vegan food you go to and it's like, this tastes like wheatgrass, but that's not made by black people. You know what I'm saying? So like, sometimes your interpretation, black person, of vegan food may be, that's going to be disgusting. The food at Vegan Tuesdays is amazing.
Shout out Mama Neza. Shout out the vegan gumbo. Shout out the Ethiopian
Buddha,
foods.
Jafani. Even G-Mac himself, like I told him that cauliflower was amazing to the point where I wanted to hit the block, spin the block twice.
That's what's up.
But one of the biggest hits where I could even, like, you were sold out of your vegan pizza, like, okay, technically it's from 12 to 4.
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, like, okay, I'm going to be casual or whatever. I'm working on projects like always. I'll put my order in at 2 o'clock. I'll put my order in at 2 o'clock. I'm thinking something's wrong with the app. No more pizza.
Yeah. Well. Continue. Yeah. I'll be quick about this too. Like, veganism for me started with me understanding Dr. Sebi's explanation on the black diet. And it's not racist. It's not stereotypical that our digestion system is different. And there's different things that we should be digesting. So I practiced being alkaline for about 2 years. And I swindled back into just veganism, whatever that even means. And then I got inspired, like, beyond the pizza, of like giving people my perspective of veganism. Again, my perspective. Everyone's is different. So at first I couldn't do pizza. Like, I've trained myself with pizza. I've been to Italy. I've been to Brooklyn 2,000 million times. I've been to pizza expos. I've been making my own dough for years. Like, studying flour, the relationship between sugar and flour, sugar separately, yeast, different type of yeast, fresh yeast, active yeast, instant yeast, different types of flours, wheat, unbleached, bleached, humidity, temperature of water, oh my God, hydration, all of this, right? Did all this studying, did all this stuff, and pop-ups weren't big here. Again, Piper, she put me on to Willis Show Bar, an owner who only had an amazing bar but didn't have a restaurant. So, again, he didn't have a space where I could do pizza, no pizza oven, no space to do pizza. Pizza's like a whole thing. So I just did vegan sandwiches, vegan salads. Shout out to Shannon. She was part of that journey. Yeah, the vegan po' boy catfish sandwich you made. I still want another one of those whenever it comes back, but continue. So long story short, COVID hit. It's Food Detroit kind of had to take a different direction. And Piper introduced me to GMAC, who, again, was on the Piper Carter show. Didn't know GMAC, but I knew he was doing this initiative with Yusuf and, again, with the community builders that Khary just mentioned. Shout out to Sherry, too. So did the Vegan Tuesday. People seemed to like the pizza. And it had been so long since I'd done it, I didn't know how people were going to take to it. And then I did another one where I said, I'm a vegan person, but I like other people with other lifestyle options to enjoy themselves too. So I opened it up to like dairy cheese as well. And then from there, GMAC, a couple months from there, goes, I want you to come to Alkebu-lan. The owner of Alkebu-lan loves pizza. They do like different challenges, karate challenges, belt turnovers. Like his grandson is doing a belt turnover. He's turning a black belt. He loves pizza. I think they should try your pizza. Cool. Go there. Got a full kitchen. I mean, I'm spaced out like this, just making pie. So happy. And I probably served them like 8 pies. And then at the end, they were like, man, you should do your pizza here. Like, you should really just do your pizza here. You got a job. You work 9 to 5. You ain't going to be able to leave elevators. This is perfect. You could do it 1 day a week. We could build to doing it 2 days a week. We could build to doing it 3 days a week. But you should start your foundation here. And that's where I've been rocking for the last couple years. And
now it's been on the news. It's been everywhere. It's times where I see your flyer in different places. Like one of the biggest ones, as you know, you don't know all my big homies, but you'll be like, Khary, you know everybody. And I know a lot of people. But two of my biggest homies are Tony Stovall.
Okay.
And Cliff Green from Hot Sam's.
Oh yeah.
But Tony did a whole little small feature on your pizza one time. He was like, man, this pizza, and he from the deep east side too, a southeastern guy, but Tony, that's my guy. Tony was like, man, this pizza good as ever, man. I was like, that's my homie. And it's like, oh, Khary, Tony always messing with me. So it was one of the coolest things where I'm like, your reach of the pizza, and then feeling like I'm a part of like some introductions that have blossomed new opportunities from what I consider like underutilized space and things. As people even wonder, like, I think all the time, even with you, it's like, you want to see a camera, you want to see a microphone here. It's underutilized.
I've
like,
never seen
use
like
it. Use it that way. It's being used.
That's
And yeah, does stuff break? Yeah, stuff breaks. But at the same time, it breaking in operation is better than hoarding the resource. As people know, I believe our culture is different than what this system of the rugged individualism creates.
For sure.
Our synergy and our creativity, our lifeblood comes together through connection, through collective thinking and all this stuff. And now these resources kind of move together because now all these other people I know you, and if I can bring you up, we can move.
It's the best thing ever.
Together more for, it's definitely unreal. Challenges sometimes, but we move together in unison a whole lot more than being fragmented and segregated, as I think this system designed by others, not black folks, wants it to be.
You taught me, though, Khary, that you have to learn how to invest in people and be invested in, too. And that's like the relationship. And it's not a currency thing. It's not a like capitalistic thing. We talk all day long about building community. We need to build community. We need to do this and all this, right? How do you do it, right? You see someone that's like-minded, you introduce them. You never know where that can go, right? It just starts from there, and that's literally what this is. It's like, aligning my character, understanding that my character has to go through 4 and 5 different circles, right? And that when you got a goal, right, you keep yourself in a position where you can keep meeting people, right? You keep your reputation up to par, right? You move. I'm not saying I'm perfect. You make mistakes. You do things that you shouldn't do. And you learn from that. So the next segment of people that you meet, right, it just keeps floating, right?
Yeah.
You put yourself in a situation, not all of you is needed in a space, right? I feel like maybe portions of you are needed, right, to get things accomplished. So I've given portions of myself to the community, and I'm starting to give more and more and more. But the portions of myself that I've given to Detroit are just enough to fuel other people and vice versa, right? And that's where I am with it. I've learned a lot about, from giving you my origin story. Like, I've never in my life felt more aligned with Detroit than what I have now through Detroit is Different. I've had so many wonderful learning experiences with Detroit is different, from learning how to do tech more and more, learning how to plan for something that's 6 months down the line, right? The first festival you've done, right? Seeing all the background that went into that and all the different people you have to pull together, how to pull people together, right? All different types of things, you know. And again, all my dreams have honestly been fueled out of this incubator space, which is the purpose of the space. You know what I'm saying? It's just the truth. I don't know how else to put it. I would stand a million tall on the fact that these are the things that are needed for us to get to where we go. When we talk about, you know, not accepting money from people who are gentrifying the city, right? When we talk about not needing grants, right? All of us write grants and all the spaces that we're in, right? Our spaces connect. And one of the things that comes up is grant writing, right? Being turned down and being turned down and then getting one, right? And then getting turned down and getting turned down, right? But if we work together, if we come together and we put people and put the plays where they need to be, put the players where they need to be, put people in the position where they need to learn, where they need to receive, then we'll be okay. I truly feel that way.
I feel you, definitely. I can say a couple different things, like the opportunities in granting, especially now with the 501c3 and then things come and exposure. I think you make the decision at the margin, but I love the way you even said it starting off as a point guard, because that's what it's like. Yeah. Like I say, I play pickup. So pickup point guard, in some ways, I only played a little bit of organized basketball, has more of a responsibility.
For sure.
Because in pickup basketball, it's very community-based. And I kind of like where I'm going with this analogy, because like in organized basketball, it's kind of like you're functioning in the system of the corporate structure, capitalism, white supremacy, or like just something that's not as black and create. Like pickup basketball, sometimes you don't even know where these people came from. My man fresh out of jail. This other dude is in high school. Mm-hmm. This other dude sort of kind of don't want to be here. Mm-hmm. This other guy's out here because he want his son to just do something active. So being a point guard or something like that, you're understanding and meeting people where they are a whole lot more. And you have to pick up very fast their level of playing basketball.
True.
You know, and where their skill sets are and what position they can be in so that you can win this game. Because it's been so many times where I've seen, you know, because definitely me, like I always say, I was intangibles just because I just like talking shit. I wasn't really that good at basketball. But I've been on runs where we win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in a row where you're like, how is this happening? Because we're really not better than this team of, like, they got 3 people out here dunking. You know what I'm saying? Because like the system of somebody that's that floor general really knows what's happening. So I like that analogy of understanding the plays of where people are and just knowing how to utilize these resources and connecting. But we've been so conditioned to not connect. That's why I like when people say, like, why don't you charge the podcasters? And it's like, because I don't look at the podcasters as that's not the resource they're giving. The resource they're giving to Detroit is different, is it's a different interface of creativity. So that people don't look at Detroit as different as much as they may associate it with Khary Frazier. I feel like for Detroit is different to become a larger platform. You're thinking Piper Carter. You're thinking Brittany March. You're thinking Josh Adams. You're thinking My Natural Hair. You're thinking Jennifer Crawford. Ask Jennifer. Like, you're thinking all these different faces beyond Khary, because it's not about Khary. It's a platform that is community-based.
Period.
And as I pour into this, it pours back into me.
Yeah.
So has It's Food been like that for you? Like, as you've given more, I know it's like the old church adage, you know. As you've given more, have you found you getting more out of it?
My mom says that to me every week. She's like, you got to give. You got to keep giving. So the answer to your question is yes. It is not just the old church adage. It is magic. Right? And I don't mean magic in the sense of, ooh, voodoo. No, but there's things that we do that we put out, energy we put out there, and it boils invisibly, and then it creates something. So the more that you add into something and you get nothing out of it on a surface level, the more, the really is what you're getting the most out of it, right? So, yes, like I have done, even just from of investing in self, right? Right. Whatever you pour into yourself, it literally will sprout. You have to believe that. If it's coming from a genuine space right? You're not just money, right? Time, effort, research, traveling. That's all. If you're doing all of that and you're investing in yourself, that will sprout into something. That's you giving yourself something. That's the first thing, right? The second thing is fueling other people, right? We talked about it. It's a thin line, right? Where you have to like be focused and be rooted into yourself, right? But sometimes those quantum leaps that we talked about come from you fueling someone else and you learning the tools that you need to actually invest more into yourself. So yes, the more that I have fueled other people, the more that I've invested in other people, the more I've gained and garnished the tools that I need to do it with myself. And that's how I look at it. I don't know if I answered the question.
That's dope. So with that, get the people some information where they can get some pizza. I love the for the Super Bowl you did the mushroom wings. Like I said, they were great. I don't know if I label them wings, but I want to get them again. Hopefully they're on the menu because I'm coming back this weekend to get some. Share with the people how they can get some of this vegan pizza.
So there's two ways. One, I'm not a social media person, but through Khary, I have at Is Food Detroit, and it's just simply spelled ITSFOODDETROIT at Is Food Detroit. That's on Instagram. That's the best way to see the food, understand, kind of the community aspect of what we do, and then get updates on different things. And then honestly, my business number is my personal number, 248-804-3140. If you have any inquiries about what we do, you can call me. And then the website. So the website opens up every single week on Wednesdays, and it stays open until Sunday. It's www.vgnpza.com. So vegan pizza for short. www.vgnpza.com.
Okay.
And that's where you can order the pizza. You can understand, again, what we're doing. We're open every single Sunday. We're open. You can catch us there from 11 to 5. And then we're open every first Saturday of the month.
Okay. So for people to know, because like I say, this pizza it's great, but it also is in high demand. So if I want to get my pizza, if I just happen to be one of them, our people, we may show up on Sunday at 1 o'clock. What's the probability that I'm going to show up Sunday at 1 o'clock and be walking out of there with a pizza at 1:30?
I've had to really, to answer your question in short, just come. We'll have pizza for you. But It is much better if you pre-order. I will say it makes, for me being a small business and working 9 to 5 still, it helps me organize and ensure that you get the best quality of pizza. That's the only thing behind the pre-order, right? Is that I'm kind of like a one-man band, kind of, sort of, in my own way. But if you walk in, that's fine. You might wait a little longer, but we will take care of you. We'll get you a pizza. You know what I mean? So I don't want people to think like, oh, you got to pre-order this pizza so damn good. Like, it's just the fact that it's a one-day-a-week thing.
Capacity.
It's a good pizza, but it's more so about like helping the kitchen, and we're all trying to start our own thing. We're all trying to get there, and my way of doing it is doing it one day a week, ensuring that I can give the best quality and give the best version of myself, right? Because yourself is what fuels the food. So that's it.
That's what's up. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was amazing. So
all day.
Thank you, Khary.
Peace.
Peace.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.